At my father's retirement dinner, the ballroom smelled faintly of polished wood and white wine. Everything was arranged with the kind of precision he respected. Name cards centered, silverware aligned, achievements listed in neat print inside a glossy program. I attended because absence would have been louder than presence. He had spent 40 years building a reputation for discipline and results. My siblings fit that narrative easily: promotions, advanced degrees, photographs suitable for framed walls. I built a quieter life. Not unsuccessful, just not headline-worthy in the way he preferred. By the time dessert plates were cleared, I had already endured the small omissions. Childhood stories that excluded me. Thank yous that bent toward others. Each slight was subtle enough to be deniable. When he stood for the final toast, the room leaned in. This was the moment he had rehearsed his whole career for: a summation. He thanked his colleagues first, then his friends, then my siblings by name. My real children, he said, lifting his glass toward them. The ones who made me proud. Applause broke out instantly. People respond to confidence before they process meaning. Then he turned his head toward me. You can leave. It wasn't shouted. It was delivered the way you dismiss a staff member after a meeting. Efficient. Decisive. The room quieted, but not enough. Not immediately. There's always that delay when people wait to see if something is a joke. I stood because I always had. Compliance had been my specialty. Less friction. Less fallout. My chair slid back with a soft scrape against the floor. I reached for my purse. My body moved before my mind did, a well-trained reflex. And then my husband stood. Not abruptly. Not dramatically. He simply rose, adjusted his jacket, and placed one steady hand at the small of my back. Before she goes, he said, voice calm, there's something I think the room should know. He didn't look at my father. He addressed the guests. Most of you are here because of the Legacy Scholarship Fund that was announced tonight. It's generous. It will help a lot of students. There were nods around the room. The scholarship had been presented as my father's final gift to the company and the community. What hasn't been mentioned, my husband continued evenly, is that the fund exists because of the wrongful termination case filed 3 years ago, the one that was quietly settled. The compliance review that followed required the creation of an oversight board and a restitution endowment. The air changed. My father's jaw tightened. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time, my husband said, still composed. Because she led that review. He turned slightly toward me, but his hand never left my back. She was hired by the board to investigate the claims. She documented the safety violations that had been dismissed for years. She negotiated the settlement terms that made tonight possible. A murmur moved through the room, low and unsettled. I hadn't told many people. Confidentiality agreements do that. And I hadn't told my father because he never asked what I actually did. He preferred assumptions. From the far side of the room, the company's current CEO, who had been silent most of the evening, stood. That's correct, she said clearly. Her work protected this company from collapse. The scholarship fund is part of the compliance restructuring she designed. No one applauded this time. They processed. My father's narrative had been about pride measured in public accomplishments. He hadn't realized that one of those accomplishments was seated at his own table. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it. Authority had shifted, but not in a theatrical way. It wasn't humiliation. It was correction. I felt heat in my face. Not from shame, but from exposure. I had never wanted a spotlight. I had only wanted neutrality. Instead, I had been dismissed. My husband didn't raise his voice. He didn't attack. He simply let the facts stand in the center of the room like an immovable object. I think she'll stay, he added quietly. He pulled out my chair. The CEO lifted her glass again, this time looking at me. To integrity, she said. A few others followed, uncertain at first, then steadier. My father did not raise his glass. The rest of the evening moved awkwardly. Conversations splintered. Some guests approached me with restrained curiosity. Others avoided eye contact. My siblings looked stunned. Not angry, just recalibrating. My father remained seated, shoulders squared, as if posture alone could restore order. He did not apologize. I hadn't expected him to. When the event finally ended, he approached us near the exit. "You should have told me," he said, voice controlled. "I tried," I answered. "You weren't interested. It wasn't sharp, just factual." He nodded once, as though filing the information away rather than absorbing it. There was no reconciliation waiting behind his eyes. We left before he could reconstruct himself. Outside, the air was cool and unscripted. I exhaled in a way I hadn't all night. I didn't want to embarrass him, I told my husband. "You didn't," he said. "Truth isn't embarrassment." In the car, the silence felt different from the silence inside the ballroom. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't expectant. For years, I had measured myself against a scale I didn't design. Tonight didn't erase that history. It didn't heal it. My father might never see me as part of his definition of pride. But something shifted. He had tried to define legitimacy publicly. That definition had been challenged publicly. Not with cruelty, not with spectacle, with evidence. I realized then that I had stood up to leave because I believed dismissal was permanent. My husband had stood because he believed it was contestable. There's a difference. My relationship with my father remains uncertain. There was no phone call the next day. No dramatic reckoning. Just distance, familiar, structured. But in that ballroom, when he told me I could leave, I learned something precise. Rejection loses power when it's witnessed and answered. I didn't win a father that night. I kept my dignity. And I saw clearly and without doubt who stands when I do.